Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here for SF DocFest. We've been bringing documentaries from all around the world and here in the Bay Area for the last 24 years. Um, I'm Chris Metzler. I've been programming with SF DocFest for about 10 years. A 50-year-old Caucasian man with brown hair, a little bit overweight, and wearing a blue shirt. And I'm in conversation with director Reed Davenport and producer Colleen Cassium, who are here with a really wonderful film, Life After. Welcome, Reed, and welcome, Colleen.
Thank you, Chris. This is Rick Davenport. I'm a white man with glasses and a little bit of a beard in a hotel room that is blurred in the background.
And this is Colleen. I'm a 30-year-old white woman with a brown bob and a striped light blue shirt in a wooden house in my parents' home with some nice birds on the back wall there. Thank you, Chris, for having us. Excited to be in conversation. And
Yeah,
thank you
thanks
all for
very much.
watching the film.
Yeah, most definitely. This was a real treat to kind of run across. Heard a lot of great things as you guys have kind of traveled around the country and the world with it. And so maybe a good place to start is, what's the kind of origin story for the film? How did you kind of first hear about the case and story and decide that there was a film to be made?
Yeah, so in the beginning of the film, you see me reference a book that I was reading years ago and found out about Buffet and it got instantly interested in her and then couldn't find out if she was alive or not. And that was all true. That is the real true origin story. And as I had read about, or after I had read about Buffet, I would come across stories like Jacob and like Michael Hickson that echoed the questions that Buffet raised. So that was, what you saw in the film was really what actually happened.
Nice. And as you guys started kind of piecing together the story, were there certain kind of expectations of like what it was about the film, the story that was most interesting to you, and what were some of the surprises along the way?
I think Colleen can attest to this. We were very, especially early on, we were still trying to wrap our heads around this this seemingly progressive issue and seeming bodily autonomy versus what we had received from disability advocates and how we see moving story through disability studies. So it was kind of the circle where it started out really complicated and then it got simple and then it got complicated again. And I think we did those circles for a while, which was kind of neat, in my opinion. But for me, the real surprise was finding Elizabeth's book via Teresa. In the end, Elizabeth's writing validated the thesis of the film.
Yeah. And have you guys collaborated before? And what was the kind of collaborative process of like kind of tracking down how you wanted to tell the story? Colleen and Reed.
Sure, we hadn't worked together before, but Reed was in the process of finishing his debut feature. I Didn't See You There at the time that he reached out and showed us some of that material. I watched his short films and was really impressed by the artist and thinker that he was, and became very clear that he was an artist that we wanted to work with at Multitude. And The early stages of the process was this was a really long research and development period, I would say, in particular, and that sort of looked like at first a lot of just conversation and debate and like exchange internally. As Reed alluded to, it felt very vast, very complicated, very murky. It felt like there was so much gray area we had to parse as we sort of came to our political perspective and the thesis we wanted to build over the course of the film. And yeah, every day we flip-flopped between feeling like it was the most complicated thing in the world and then having these bursts of these moments where we would just be struck by actually how utterly simple it is on a foundational level, when you think of this issue and simply as disabled people dying when they shouldn't be, and that's what's happening. And here are all the different ways that it happens, in ways that may be obscured or might be opaque, intentionally opaque. But we sort of got to peel all that back, connect dots, many of which Reed brought to his sort of first vision for this project. These seemingly isolated stories of the Hickson case, of Jerica Bolin, of the unfolding circumstances in Canada, which when we started the film had just passed. The piece of law that expanded MAID to disabled people had just passed. And so we saw the implications of that play out in real time as we were doing research. So it was a lot of exchange internally as we tried to get clear on what we personally thought and felt and what we made of it all. At one point, Reed even jokingly suggested that our Slack messages should be a part of the film, simply as we tried to figure out how to make a film that took an audience along with us as we had perspective, as mostly I had perspective shifts in real time. That was the most sort of surprising and wonderful part of this experience for me, was that I thought I knew, before Reed brought this project to me, I thought I knew what I felt and believed about assisted dying. And I saw it as a matter of bodily autonomy and individual choice. And I got to have that totally complicated for me. And so my mind was really expanded, and I got a incredible political education through this process around disability, which is still, in my opinion, sort of one of the biggest gaps in our sort of societal and cultural attitudes. We really just disability is invisibilized in many ways, and so we don't think about it a lot. And so yeah, it was a hard needle to thread, but I hope that our viewers felt like they could track our journey and could identify with both the complex and nuanced pieces of what we show in the film, and also can sort of cut through that to really share in our values of protecting human flourishing and dignity.
And shout out to editor of SF resident native Don Boudet, who was obviously a key creative collaborator for us. It really helped. Hopefully, if we were successful at Threading the Needle, he was a big part of that.
Yeah, well,
editor.
One of the things you guys had kind of mentioned, like the nuance, right, is like, I think it's always great to kind of run across documentaries that kind of like challenge your assumptions, going on in, but the nuance, because like that's the thing that keeps you grounded in the story, of like wanting to know where it's going to go. You're excited to kind of see what's behind each corner, in the sense like you haven't figured out the entire film, 5 minutes in, so given the kind of the evolution of the film, which started with a lot of conversations and things, how did you approach the kind of visual aesthetic of like how you wanted us to kind of to tell the story, Reed, and let us kind of get immersed in it that way?
Yeah, for me, this was only my second feature film, and my first feature film I shot myself in a very lo-fi abstract manner. So I think for me, in a lot of senses, this felt like another debut film that I had to really figure out a different aesthetic, and we did that. And I mean, some people may see it as a more traditional aesthetic, but there were several aspects of specifically disability as well as um, just more experimental that I wanted to include. I wanted my shoulder to be in a lot of the interview shots to remind people that the director was disabled, and I think you also saw some of my POV shots where it is both a reprieve of the facts and the stories that we are telling, and also a chance for me to catalyze my own thoughts for the audiences.
Yeah. Do you think you guys talked about kind of some political motivations and underlying ideas in the film. So, you know, when folks kind of leave the theater or finish watching at home, what are some of the ways that we at home can kind of like take action, I guess, and also kind of help speed up this evolution, in conversation out there in the world?
So, from my perspective, this film it does tackle assisted suicide, but I think the roots of the film are about how we treat disabled people when they are living, and I think people starting to have to start um holding um candidates and elected officials to to account in terms of disability support services, access, disabled people to the workforce, and I think that begins with really making these questions a staple of any legislators um platform for office.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, one of the things that makes me think about is that I always try and remind our audiences that, we're lucky enough that filmmakers like you all share their films early in their life cycle with us, and so we in the audience, like our responsibility to you all is to kind of, for the films that, resonate with us, is to kind of become your grassroots street team to kind of, over a beer at, the backyard barbecue, like say, hey, I just saw this really great film, and so, what I know you guys have a larger release later in the year, and we appreciate you sharing the film with us now. What are ways that we can kind of continue to follow your filmmaking actions and also the release of the film?
Yeah, we're going to be rolling the film out in 10 cities this summer theatrically, so please keep an eye out. You can follow Multitude Films or read to check out where we're going to be bringing the film starting in New York in July. And we're going to be partnering with community organizations on each of these screenings to have curated local-based conversations around the issues at the heart of the film. And then the film will be broadcast on Independent Lens sometime this fall. So please stay apprised. I think also, if you take a tiny seed away from this film, if you want to start sort of thinking about how you can take this film back into conversation with your family or community, what I hope people take away at a very basic level is disability is a natural part of the human experience, and therefore the issues that we think of as disability issues, whether that's healthcare or isolation or wealth inequality, poverty, they're actually issues that face everyone. And so the stakes are universal here. And especially right now, as the disability community is under really accelerated danger, both from anti-diversity executive orders, from threatened cuts to Medicaid and other vital supports and healthcare services, and in general, a very eugenicist rhetoric that devalues disabled lives. That's more important than ever. So I think keep talking about how we take care of each other, thinking about mutual aid, thinking about other systems. We need to keep making demands of the state. We need to keep demanding better of our political leaders and of our governments, but we also, you know, that may not happen immediately. And so we need to be taking care of each other too.
Here, here. Well, thank you again, Reed and Colleen, for sharing your film with us, and really excited to share it here with our SF DocFest audiences, and all the best, and everybody continue to kind of follow the film.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Most definitely.